has sustained us. He has enabled us to reach this time. And through his mercy, God has enabled us the opportunity just to see a little more, to go a little further. So I'm thankful to the eternal God for all his blessings bestowed upon each of us collectively and us as a community. And indeed, we are blessed. We are blessed when we have the capacity and the ability to gather ourselves together, as the prophet has declared. For in some instances, we are called, O nation, not desired. And if we are that undesired nation by the world, I want you to know that the Eternal cares about you. The Eternal cares about us. The Eternal has said, I will try you. So don't be afraid of trials. Trials are given to strengthen. Not to make everything bright and rosy and, heavenly all day. That so many people they build their lives around illusions of things that are not true. And it does not matter how wealthy one might be. They are always, it seems, faced with issues. When we think about this, the comedian, the guy that asphyxiated himself with that belt, that's what he used. Okay? And he hung himself with a belt. Had more resources, material resources than you could shake a stick at. But material resources aren't all that they are made up to be. I just fret when I see so many of our athletes who think they need 15 houses or 5 houses and 7 cars and 9. What for? Right. Who are you trying to impress? Right. What are you saying? Some of the wealthiest people I know would walk by you going up and down the street and you would never notice. Right? You would never know it. They're not interested in trying to show that. Let's show something else other than that you got bling bling. Let's show that we got mind, sense, understand. Let's show forth a little of that insightfulness that the Eternal has bestowed upon us. Let's learn that we have to learn how to not only read, but read between the lines. Not only hear, but hear what's not said. Because sometimes it's not just so important what people say. Sometimes it's what they don't say that you really ought to be listening to. Well, Rabbi, if they're not saying anything, how can I listen? Because in them not saying, they're speaking depths. You have to perceive it and understand it and get it. This portion today, just, a lot of this, Rabbi, this is some very old stuff, but it could very well be applicable to us today. We can examine in our lifetime. We have seen people go to war, and we have seen how women have been ravaged in those circumstances and situations. And I don't want to go back to the Civil War. We don't have to go back to the Revolutionary War. We can go to the Vietnam War, because there were villages that were not only just where the women were savagely attacked, the children, when some instances, the entire village, because they couldn't find what they were looking for, had napalm bombs dropped on them, and napalm eats into the skin, into the very essence of the actual being of an individual. People are still suffering from that today. They're still suffering from that today. Then they put Agent Orange on. Thank you. We were told not to, no chemical warfare, but Agent Orange was a chemical. And some of our brothers and sisters, particularly the men and women that served in the Corps, that served in the Bosnia and Herzegovina during World War II and World War I. When Germany went into Russia, the amount of rape and pillage that was going on was unimaginable. And what did the Russians do to the Germans when they came into Germany, into Berlin? In less than a week, over 1 million women were raped. So many of the men committed suicide after they were raped by what they felt was the lesser people. It's happening in this land as well to the Native Americans, the people that we call Native Americans. This mistreatment. There was a man named Jackson, and he calls people, they call it a trail of tears for the thousands of Native Americans who perished, being sent from one place to another location. You cannot do anything you want to do because you think you have the power to do it. That's what the Torah is trying to say to us. We don't call it the spoils of war, where we lose our humanity. We lose our capacity to be passionate. Sometimes there's so much double talk that we hear that it amazes me. I'm truly amazed. The Torah says that this woman had to be, you couldn't do what you wanted to do. She had to be given the opportunity to literally mourn for her father and for her mother. To pair her hair, to cut her hair, to pair her nails, giving her this opportunity for a 30-day period to mourn. Then if you went into and you didn't desire her, you couldn't treat her as chattel property. You had to still treat her, you humbled her, you have to treat her in a dignified manner. And if this was the case for one that was a captive woman, how much more dignified should we treat our daughters and our wives and our mothers with dignity? Absolute, unequivocal dignity. To show that sense of honor. Because if we don't honor them, the world certainly won't. I never forget the story about the African queen who came into the captives. I think she was in Zaire, somewhere down there, maybe Zaire. And she goes into the captives, to the victors, and the victors are going to show her this absolute and ultimate disrespect. They're not going to have any place for her to sit. Until two of her guards came in with her, and they saw that their queen didn't have a place to sit. So they became the chair for their queen. Down on all fours. You're not going to treat my queen any kind of way. I don't care that you did, queen. There are rules that are supposed to be applicable in war, but it seems that sometimes it depends on who you apply those rules to or what war you're fighting. Where other elements get more respect than other people. But in the sight of God, in this portion, all must be treated with dignity, because it talks about the person who did wrong, who was killed and hung on a tree. You could not leave them there. You couldn't leave them in the street. Ferguson police for 4.5 hours. Uncovered. Low dignity. They had to be treated with dignity. Even the person that is wrong, guilty, and convicted, and punished by the society. We didn't have that right. Even with our own children. young people never heard this, because some of y'all parents are scared of your children. But my mama told me, I bought you here, I take you out.
I told that brother.
It's okay. Hardly, and they meant it. They weren't going to literally kill you, but you thought you was dead. You thought you was going to be dead. We did not have permission to kill our children. You did not have permission. If your child was born with a special need or some deformity, to take that child and put that child on a mountain somewhere for rabid beasts to eat that child. You didn't have permission to do that. You had to care for that child or give that child to the society, to the community. You could not do what you wanted to do, even with your own child. So daddy couldn't get him to listen, and mama couldn't get him to listen. Don't think that they just took him to the elders, but the elders said, boy, you don't listen to your daddy and your mama. So you no! The purpose of the elders was to sit him and say, son, what's wrong with you? Maybe he would hear from a different voice, from a different perspective, from a different angle. Maybe he would learn a little something. Just not to take them out and kill them, but to teach. Son, if you don't respect your mother and your father, then that means you don't respect anybody in this community. When a man doesn't respect his mother and sister, he can never respect you. Because he doesn't even understand the meaning of respect, because he doesn't respect his mother. He doesn't respect his father. He will say anything he thinks he's big enough to say in front of his father and his mother. What do you think about saying anything or doing anything to you? Always be mindful. That's this idea. I told you before how one of my children looked at this little person, and that person looked at them, and they kind of liked each other. And they kind of said, when he came home, he said, well, you know, I met so and such and such. I said, yeah, well, what? She live over on such and such. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, what's the last name? I said, oh, that's your cousin. That's your cousin. Y'all can be buddies. What up, cuz? But we're not from that part of the world where we do that. It's common in some cultures, but in our culture, it is not. It is not. So we have to understand that and live that thing. And this idea of giving respect to everything and to everyone. And we have to give that respect to each other. These are to build a community, to build a society, to build norms within us, habits of what we do. So if you see something and you find something, you just say, well, I found the $10. You didn't find it in here. It's on the floor. You just picked it up. You didn't find it like the American means of, oh, it was just $10 laying there, Rabbi. I don't know. Well, you know what? We have to ask it. Anybody drop any money? Being don't be throwing over there. But we have, what I'm trying to say, this 22nd chapter talks about a person's ox that goes out, okay, gets lost. There's something, and then you find it, that we have to keep it, that we have to take care of it. But our society says, find is keep it, a little weak. And we say that's all right. Or they get there, see it, they say, thank you, Jay.
Right, Jay.
Thank you, JJ. JJ dropped this for me. Not thinking that whoever did drop it and lose it, that it could have in fact been that talks about how women are to be respected. You just can't lie. You just can't, because you're strong, rape women. And the Torah always, in this instance, give women the benefit of the doubt, particularly if she is in a field. They say that the woman cried out and no one heard her. But it can't be in the city. Because if she cried out, somebody is sure to hear. So you know how she's crying. Okay? So it says then that both of them would be subject to the penalty of death. This idea of belonging to is a sacred one within the context of our people. That's why the very act of a marriage ceremony is called kiddushin. It is called sanctification. To be sanctified. To make it special. It is set aside. Because it says kiddushin, you can't co-fellowship, kiddushin everywhere. Kiddushin over here. Kiddushin over there. 2 drops of kiddushin over here. Pound over there. No, that's not how it works. That is not how it works. Just as one lady told the other lady when she didn't know anything about Facebook and putting stuff on her wall. And she said, I'm going to unfriend you. So she took a picture time off the wall. But it wasn't Facebook wall, it was a wall in her house. And the poor lady told her, that's not how it works. And sometimes people don't understand how things work. That there's a mechanism in the way and the manner in which things will work. So let me complete by simply sharing with you my last thought that I talked about earlier today, about being a vessel. And I believe we're all vessels of the eternal. Sometimes the smaller the vessel doesn't mean that what's in that vessel isn't important. Because every one of us is a vessel for the eternal. Every one of us has some gift, and maybe you haven't found your gift yet. Maybe you never even started looking for your true gift, but you are a vessel of God. And all vessels are important. But not more important than the other vessel. Not more important than the other vessels. And when God gives you something, don't be afraid. Don't grab it, hold it, lock it up, and I know this and I don't want nobody else to know because somebody else knows and they might be as smart as me. And that's okay. If we don't encourage these young boys and girls to be all that they can be, to be smarter than you or I, if we don't imbue in them the sense that they can do whatever they put their hearts and their minds to do, but they must apply themselves through their study, we have to do that. We have to push them. We have to call them great. For them to understand that they can be great. We have to call them our little queens. So they just don't think that that applies to somebody from some other part of the world. We have to call them our little princes and little kings. So that they'll start respecting themselves. And when they respect themselves, they're not going to let anybody else disrespect them. But if they don't respect themselves, then they'll be tricked and told that foolishness is love. And they'll be looking for it in all the wrong places. That's our obligation. All of our obligation to each one of these children, to nurture, to instill, to imbue, to strengthen, to encourage, and to correct. Because we all, every last one of us, must be able to be corrected. And if you're beyond being corrected, then I would tell you like Miss Phoebe told Paul. They never would have got home for that girl. Paul hadn't treated her like that and broke up with her. If you had kept her, what she said was if you had kept her, that family unit, that community together, you never would have got her. You know, beat up on a lady out in the street. Told the lady, don't put your hand all over my kid's face, rubbing my kid's, I'll put your finger in. People don't put it, my daughter, what's wrong with you? They wouldn't have got it. Because she would have been surrounded within the community. And she would have had to have herself in that circumstance. We've lost a lot like that. Because they step outside the community. We don't seek to reach out to them and try to bring them back. So that we can be a unit. Community of people. Family. Because Eternal said, I'm married. Each of us. Shabbat Shalom.